Hi, I'm Doug, and thanks for listening in today. Our topic is focusing for landscape photography. Landscape photos are very different in that your viewer expects everything within the frame to be in focus. If you look at the left photo here, you're going to see the foreground is in focus, the background is not. This is what you'd rather see here. With everything in focus throughout, and that's a challenge to get that focal range that wide. So I'm going to be talking about 4 ways today that you can get that done. The first one is to just choose a small aperture on your camera, like an f/22 or an f/18, and then just focus somewhere in the middle and hope. That's kind of shooting in the dark. I think there's other better ways to be more sure of the result. One that landscape photographers have used for many years is called the hyperfocal distance. And Mark Gaylor, a Sony ambassador, has shared a really simple way to focus at the hyperfocal distance. First thing you want to do if you have a full frame sensor is to set your f-stop at f/16, or if you have a crop sensor at f/11, turn your focus mode to manual focus. And once you're there, you want to zoom in with your focus magnifier or your zoom button until you're in on the background. And once you're there, turn your focus ring manually until that background comes into focus, and zoom back out and release your shutter, and you should be focused at the hyperfocal point. This next method of focusing for landscapes is the choice of many professionals today. It's called focus stacking. Focus stacking, also known as focus blending, is a technique which combines multiple images taken at different focus distances to give a resulting image with a greater depth of field than any of the individual source images. So to show you how this works, you'd have your camera set up on a tripod, and you would adjust your focal ring on manual focus to the flower that's closest to the camera lens. And then you'd want to take that shot, and then without moving the camera at all, you'd want to adjust your focus ring to the next closest flower. And then you would just take that shot and continue on taking shots at different focus points back through the frame, spreading them out a little bit more as you go back towards the background. From there, you'd want to bring those photos into your raw converter. This one is Lightroom, and you would open them from there once you highlighted them as layers in Photoshop. Once in Photoshop as layers, you'd want to highlight all the layers and then align them. And then keeping all the layers highlighted, you'd want to merge the layers together. And then Photoshop does its wonderful thing and picks all the sharpest pixels from each of the images and blends them together into a final image. And that completes your focus stack. So in the next few moments here, you're welcome to snap a picture of the steps, and then we'll move on into tilt shift. Now we arrive at my very favorite of the focus systems, tilt shift lenses. It may be the most difficult to convey technically, but it's probably the simplest to use of all and get great results. So here we go. In order to understand why tilt-shift lenses work, we first have to take a look at the Scheimpflug principle. So normally your camera sensor would be in a vertical position, and the front surface of your lens would also be in a vertical position and also parallel to your sensor. And following that, your plane of sharpest focus would also be parallel to the other two. And actually on either side of the plane of focus, that red line, there actually is a range of apparent focus wherein things are reasonably sharp. And the width of that vertical range is controlled by your f-stop. Smaller aperture, more depth of field. Larger opening in your aperture, smaller depth of field. And that range of focus is also called your depth of field. So notice how objects in front of your range of focus are not sharp, and neither are the objects behind your vertical range of focus sharp. So back to our first diagram then, what would happen if the front surface of your lens was tilted forwards? See what happens to the plane of focus, which is represented by the red line. As you tip the front of that lens forward, the plane of focus also tips over forward, and it actually becomes more horizontal. Now, if you remember what I said about there being a range of apparent focus around the plane of focus, what you really end up with when you tip the front of that lens forward and your plane of focus goes forward also, now your range of apparent focus is a cone, and it runs along the ground. And it runs all the way from the very front of your camera all the way out to infinity. So now everything is in focus in the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. And what that enables you to do in landscape photography is to take one shot, and you get everything in apparent focus. Big time saver. Currently I'm using the Left 2 tilt-shift lenses from Canon, and I adapt them to my Sony a7R4 with the Metabones Mark V Smart Adapter. And I use the 17 for extreme close-ups where I need to be literally inches away from a foreground substrate of some sort. And I use the 24 probably more often for general landscape work where I still have an immediate foreground, but I don't have to be inches away from it. The 17 millimeter lens at B&H is running around $21.49 with some used ones that show up periodically, and the 24 runs $18.99 right now at B&H, again with some used ones showing up periodically. To finish up here, I wanted to show you a shot on the tilt-shift 17 millimeter lens, and you can see the foreground is razor sharp and the background rocks as well. One shot. So to finish this video session, you now have 4 different ways to get focus all the way through a landscape image. Use what works the best for you, and I want to thank you heartily for listening in today. For more videos on quick tips for landscape photography, please visit www.bluntphotographic.com/blog. And I just want to say one more time, thanks again for watching. Have a great day.